Right guys, it's another week and we are back for some more Championship transfer rumours. Plenty going on in the Championship right now. We've got loads of rumours going about, loads of managerial talk. We've got the two playoff semi-final second legs coming up this week as well. But as always, I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. What's been your reaction to the players your club's currently being linked with? If you're not already, make sure to go ahead and hit subscribe. Around 70% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so make sure to hit that button. It would help out loads. But without any further ado, let's just jump in. So one done deal that we've seen go through in the Championship is Leighton Stewart departing Preston North End. He has made his move to FC Thun permanent after spending the second half of the season out on loan with the Swiss side. A shame really that this one never really worked out for Stewart. Didn't get much of a chance in North End's first team after making that move from the Liverpool Academy. Can't imagine North End will have got all too much money for him. You'd imagine it would be a minimal fee, but he's 22 years old. He wants to be playing regular first team football. You can see why he might push for that move as well. But we'll kick off the rumour section of today's video by talking about Lewis O'Brien, because the Nottingham Forest midfielder has recently been linked with a move to Valencia. Now this isn't the news that Swansea fans will probably want to hear. The midfielder obviously spent the second half of the season out on loan with Swansea. Did really well during that time, I think. O'Brien coming in was a large reason why Swansea didn't really feel Matt Grimes' absence as much in that second half of the campaign, because I thought he came in and really slotted seamlessly into that midfield. He's only got 1 year remaining on his contract at Nottingham Forest, and yeah, given his performances in the second half of the season, you'd definitely imagine that Swansea would be keen to take him on a permanent basis. But if they do, they face some pretty stiff competition. Like I was saying, Valencia are supposedly interested in taking the 26-year-old on a permanent basis, and if he does move to Valencia, it would see him linking up with his former Huddersfield coach Carlos Corberán, who's obviously been doing a fantastic job since moving to Spain. O'Brien probably had his big breakthrough at Huddersfield under Corberán as well. He probably played the best football of his career under him, so you could see why he'd be tempted to make that move and play in the Spanish top flight as well. That would be a great experience. If Swansea don't manage to land him on a permanent basis, then they're going to have to look elsewhere for some midfield reinforcements. Sticking with Swansea for the time being, there's also plenty of interest in Harry Dolan right now. Now his contract with Swansea does expire at the end of the season. As of recording, it is believed that Swansea have put an offer on the table to Dolan, and so the ball's very much in his court over whether or not he signs that. But there's plenty of interest from elsewhere. You've got both Birmingham and Wrexham as the latest clubs being linked with the centre half. You imagine both of those will be able to offer pretty sizable contracts as well, with the sort of finances that's been spoken about with those two clubs coming up to the Championship. And for Darling in this position, it does seem to be the case that he's sort of testing out the waters, seeing what other options are out there and who's offering him the best deal at this point in time. Swansea will obviously want to know sooner rather than later where his future lies, because they're going to need to start planning for next season and whether or not he's in their squad. At the moment, it seems more than likely that he'll probably be leaving on a free transfer. Plymouth defender Maxim Teliverov is being linked with plenty of clubs at the moment. You've got the likes of Wrexham and Derby in the Championship, who are both supposedly interested, and there's also quite a bit of interest coming from abroad as well. Now the Ukrainian defender joined Plymouth in January for a club record fee, but it has been claimed that as part of his contract at Plymouth there was a relegation clause inserted in there, basically allowing him to explore a move if Plymouth were relegated to League One, which has obviously happened since then. Definitely made a good impact from January onwards. He did miss the final month or so of the season with a knee injury, but in those games that he did play, definitely made a positive impact, and you can see why there would be quite a bit of interest. Now the full details of that relegation clause aren't fully known yet, but you'd imagine Plymouth would want to at least recuperate the money that they spent on him in January, considering he came in for a club record fee. But he's 24 years old, only made 11 appearances in the second half of the season, but really made a good impression, and it would seem like there is quite a bit of interest in his signature at the moment as well. Another Plymouth player who could very well be on the move this summer is Belly Mumba. There's bound to be plenty of Championship interest in the 23-year-old. There's been a few murmurings that Preston North End might be one of the clubs interested, but nothing too concrete on that at the moment. But what I would say is Mumba is definitely someone who would tick quite a few boxes for what North End are looking for at this point in time. Someone who's really quite versatile, certainly someone who could be a competent wing back for us, especially on that left hand side, someone who would complement someone like a Robbie Brady really quite well. And let's not forget, North End have history for you know, dipping into that Plymouth squad and looking to go after some of their players. You know, going back to the January window when we snapped up Lewis Gibson, he's made a really good impression since arriving from Plymouth. Now, when Plymouth signed him on a permanent basis, I believe they paid a fee of around about £1 million. You'd imagine, even despite their relegation to League One, they'd still be looking to sell him for a profit, considering his age and he's still under contract. Wouldn't be surprised if a few Championship clubs are sniffing around him if he's available for a decent price. Lincoln midfielder Ethan Hannon has been linked with plenty of Championship clubs right now. The latest ones that I've seen linked got the likes of Preston, Derby County and Blackburn Rovers. He is one of Lincoln's most saleable assets right now, and it has been theorised that it probably would take a 7-figure bid to get him out of Lincoln at this stage. Certainly speaking from a Preston North End perspective, we're definitely going to be in the market for a holding midfielder, with us letting Ryan Leighton leave upon his contract expiring. A very tidy player on his day, 24 years old. You can see why there would be a bit of Championship interest from a number of clubs. Now, speaking of Preston North End, we have announced that Freddy Woodman will be leaving the club upon his contract expiring. It had been reported in recent weeks and months that his most likely destination appeared to be Manchester United to replace Tom Heaton as United's new third choice goalkeeper, obviously ticking the English quota there. However, Woodman's plans to sign for United could have been scuppered because reportedly Tom Heaton is now in negotiations with the club to extend his contract, and if Heaton does sign that new deal at Old Trafford, you can't imagine that they'd have the need to go in for Freddy Woodman, and so that would leave him available to go elsewhere, whether that's another Championship club, a Premier League club that's looking for a backup goalkeeper. He's on the market at the moment, and do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if there were a few Championship clubs that were sniffing around. You know, don't get me wrong, for all of Woodman's inconsistencies, he's a 28-year-old goalkeeper with plenty of Championship experience, and if a club in the second tier right now was looking for a goalkeeper to push their current number one, Woodman could fill that spot really quite well, so he could be back on the market if that move to United falls through. Another one relating to Preston North End, there's been quite a bit of drama relating to Kian recently and the manner of which he was released. I'm sure plenty of you have seen this story going around on social media, but if not, I'll give a quick summary of it. So the other day, Preston North End released their retained list for the season, confirmed the players who are still under contract at the club, and also confirmed the players that would be leaving at the end of the season. Among the players who will be leaving was Kian, and shortly after that club statement came out, Kian took to Instagram, put out a bit of a sarcastic message and said that basically that was the first that he'd heard of it. Now, Preston have since fired back with a club statement of their own, saying that all players had been communicated with either directly to the player or via their agent, so basically going against what Best had said. But as you'd expect, it's been picked up by the mainstream media and it has gone pretty viral. Now, in terms of Best and his future, it's really interesting to think about where he could end up, because when he originally broke into the North End side, we're going back a season or two now, there was such a promising player there, really good left foot, especially from dead ball scenarios. He had a really good delivery. I remember a game he had against Sheffield Wednesday away especially, where, you know, the hype levels really went up. Going back to January, there was supposedly a bit of interest from clubs in Saudi Arabia as well, but that amounted to nothing in the end. Reading between the lines, what seems to have gone against Best within the North End setup has been a reported lack of fitness, and it's sort of been theorised that that's one of the reasons why North End didn't offer him a new contract in the end. But he's 19 years old and clearly has a lot of ability. Wouldn't be too surprised if a fellow Championship club does take a punt on him this summer, especially considering he will be available as a free transfer, and look to maybe untap some of that potential. The fullback spent the second half of the season out on loan in Ireland, but struggled to make an impact there either. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Best and whether or not, you know, in the future he gives a bit more of a detailed explanation of how everything went down in terms of him being released. Blackburn Rovers have until the end of the month to decide if they want to sign Dion Sanderson on a permanent basis. Included in their loan contract with the Birmingham Star, Blackburn also had the option that they can trigger to sign him on a permanent basis for around about £1 million. Now, Sanderson doesn't seem to have a long-term future at Birmingham, so regardless of what Blackburn decide to do with him and whether they trigger that buy option, it doesn't look like he'll be sticking around at St Andrews for next season, and they will be looking to sell him on regardless. He obviously joined Blackburn on loan in the January window, only started in 4 matches for Rovers, made 8 appearances off the bench, wasn't massively fancied by Ishmael towards the end of the season. I think that's why this permanent deal seems quite unlikely. If I had to hazard a guess right now, I'd assume he'd go elsewhere in the Championship. And speaking of Blackburn Rovers, there's also plenty of interest in Tyrese Dolan, who is set to become a free agent upon his contract at Ewood Park expiring. Now, we've already spoken about the Championship clubs that are interested. A couple of videos ago, we were speaking about Middlesbrough's interest in him. Been some murmurings that Derby could be in the market as well, with Eustace looking to link up with his former player. Well, since that point, it has been claimed that there is also interest in the Blackburn winger from overseas as well. As of recording, no clubs have been mentioned, but it does seem as if from across Europe there are a few potential suitors for Dolan this summer, especially being available on a free transfer. So basically, if any Championship club does want to sign him, they'll probably have to offer a pretty luring package to the player and his agent, because there is going to be a lot of interest there. Going into the summer, there are quite a few clubs who are interested in Bournemouth fullback Max Aaron. Speaking about the Championship, you've got Sheffield United, who have been sniffing around, and also Leeds United as well, who have held quite a long-standing interest in the former Norwich City star, obviously, who's previously worked with Daniel Farke at Carrow Road. Easy to forget still how young Aaron's actually is. He's only 25 years old. He's not played much football in recent times. This season, for example, only made 4 appearances for Bournemouth across all competitions in the first half of the season. He spent the second half of the campaign out on loan with Valencia, but even in Spain, his game time has been similarly quite limited. For Sheffield United, especially looking for an upgrade in that right-back department, you can see why someone like Aaron's would be of interest going into next season, although all potential transfers would be put on hold for Sheffield United for the time being, before they know which division they're going to be playing in next season. Well, there you have it, guys. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to drop a like, and if you've seen any other rumours going around the EFL, make sure to get them in the comments down below. Other than that though, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.